personal experience. In some narratives, we have descriptions of close family members dying, of sexual abuse or other kinds of abuse, of betrayal, perhaps by ministers, others. Experience that fervent prayers are not answered, a sense of no connection, no presence of God. And then sort of just growing inner doubt, inexplicable feelings. It just grew up in me. I don't know where it came from, but there it was. Then, putting positive in quotation marks, it depends, of course, on your point of view, having friends who represent the alternate agnostic or atheist views, a partner or spouse, likewise, online sites and associations. And of course, I'm working with a group of online people, so they are particularly attuned here, and they often express great relief in discovering others with whom they can share their doubts and concerns. Now, casting off, I just put that metaphor in this morning. I haven't yet come up with a perfect metaphor of this sort of departure. Deconversion to me doesn't quite work because it suggests that there first was a conversion and now a deconversion. Leaving the fold is another phrase. There are at least 3 books with that title, but that suggests more kind of leaving a religious organization rather than departing from a set of views. So casting off is today's metaphor. So these are, first of all, 2 alternatives: a sudden dawning or realization of one's changed perspective, or it's explicitly gradual rather than sudden. B is far more common than A. Turbulence is sometimes a feature of this experience, and it can be felt it's very threatening. Uncertainty, dissonance among one's views, very common in these. A reluctance to acknowledge to oneself that one has become or is becoming an atheist, a fear of that. The issue of coming out or not coming out to family members, especially parents. I think of a very poignant story of a professor of psychology at a major university who grew up a conservative evangelical Christian. He married a person with similar views in South America. They have a daughter who's now about 12 or 13, faithful members of the church. He teaches Sunday school and so on, and he has become an atheist. And he's terrified of telling his wife and his daughter what has happened, and he dare not stop going to church or teaching Sunday school, and the man is tremendously anguished, as you might imagine. Of actual or feared rejection by others because of one's change of view, loss of relationships and opportunities, and then more positively reading about atheism or alternate views, finding new friends who are atheists, reports of actively taking ownership of one's life. And then in regard to the new position, sort of descriptions of the moment of realization of what that position is, declaring oneself to be an atheist, and of course, given again the nature of the site, most of them do declare that. Often, very commonly, a feeling of relief, a feeling of emancipation, liberation from the constraints of a particular religious point of view, a feeling of enhancement of their life and relationships, a reassertion of their ethical convictions, feeling of having attained a superior understanding over what they had before and over what religious people have thought of generically, confidence expressed in varying degrees regarding the new position, continued reading to consolidate the new position or prepare for sparring with others, with religious others, of course. Various interpretations, often reflection on one's religious past. Some interpret it in a positive way, see that it really, even though they reject the views, they feel that having been there was highly advantageous for them. Others regret it in various respects. They may see it as lost time, and so on. Many feel burdened by the other people's negative views of atheism, often feel isolated. Some even feel in danger in certain parts of the country where atheism is opposed. Now, this project is still underway. But one of the things, I mean, there's several things that, generalizations that I would like to make, partly as I look at what I see here and what Sebastian Merkin, a German psychologist of religion, reports in a project he undertook with his students, doing a similar kind of thing, only with German online atheist sites. In a book published last year, Ohne Gott leben, Living Without God. Some of the same themes are there, theodicy, for example. But in sort of comparing roughly, well, first of all, his conclusion, which would be absolutely my conclusion, that this state of atheism, unbelief, or rejection, or whatever, is not what he calls a bounded phenomenon, but it's extraordinarily diverse. It's it's impossible to sum up the diversity of essays, some of which are deeply moving and impressive. Another thing that seems evident to me is, and again, Sebastian also emphasizes this, that this, whatever you want to call this, unbelief, atheism, and so on, is not simply a negative thing, but that it represents a very positive affirmation of experience of various kinds. One writer says that his experiences now of the world, of transcendence and so on, is much deeper, much more profound than it was when he was religious. And that, you know, the positive affirmation of values, of commitment to human well-being and so on, that it's a very affirmative point of view, and that it should not be viewed as many religious people would as simply a negative, in a negative light. What is also apparent now, and this is a difference from Sebastian's findings, at least in kind of a general feeling, it makes a huge difference in what culture, of course, you undergo this experience. And particularly emphasizing some of these things in the last line here, the negative views of atheism that people come with and exist in the context of which, so that it's much more, there's a lot more struggle and suffering as a result of coming out of that or being within a very highly religious tradition. And then just one other point that I'd like to make, on this one, it seems to me consequential particularly, and that is so much of this is framed in language that historians of religion might reject. That is, so much of it is framed in terms of belief and unbelief, when in fact that category, that expression of faith, is germane only to a few traditions, and even in those traditions, it's not properly understood today. And I'm thinking here of the work of Wilford Campbell Smith in his book Faith and Belief, in which he traces out the history of the notion of faith and belief, showing how dramatically the understanding has changed. Again, it's not simply a matter of disbelief. We have in these so-called atheists a very strong faith that has many positive attributes. Thank you.